To ask. Yeah, what do I need to let go? In this particular situation, every moment we are holding on to something and letting go of something. So right now, you may have come from a full day of work and you may have some work to do after you go back home also. A full day of work and you may have some work to do after you go back home also. There's so many thoughts in your mind. Some thoughts you hold on to, some thoughts you let go of. So at the level of thoughts, at the level of emotions, at the level of actions. And what are the other part? What can and should I hold on to? So this is the key question that amid every adversity, every reversal, if we ask these two questions, okay, what do I need to let go? This is not. So, based on this, yesterday we discussed how, for us, we need two steps. Look up before we look ahead. If we keep looking ahead, we will get frustrated because nothing seems to be working. Or at least whatever we were trying to do, what happens? Krishna becomes the bigger reality for us. Initially, the world is very big and Krishna is small. When we actually remember Krishna, the world becomes smaller and Krishna becomes bigger. Now when Krishna becomes bigger means that no matter what is going wrong right now in my life, Krishna's plan is still working. Krishna is the bigger reality, and whatever ups and downs are happening here, these are not outside Krishna's plan. So when Krishna becomes bigger for us, remembering Krishna, this can make us peaceful. I talked about a certain level of letting go means, okay, this is how the situation is. I come to terms with it. I end or at least bring a ceasefire to my war with reality. Now after that, okay, I accepted Krishna is a bigger reality and Krishna has a bigger plan. But then I have to do something right now about this issue. So what do I do in this situation? Say, if I have an exploitative boss at office, or if I'm a student and there's a bully in my class, or if we have a irritating neighbor, or if we have some painful disease, can have many different kinds of issues. So at that time, okay, Krishna is the bigger reality. I discussed how we can live with pain instead of live in pain. So the problem doesn't overwhelm us. But still the problem is there. So when we become peaceful means what? Initially, if this is my consciousness, if the problem is filling my consciousness, then I cannot be peaceful. I'll be very agitated. But the remembrance of Krishna, it takes us into such a situation that for us, in our consciousness, the problem becomes smaller and Krishna becomes bigger. So once this has happened, now how still the problem is there, how do I deal with it? So that's the part which we'll discuss today. So here, first of all, I will introduce one key concept of dharma. And we have all heard the word dharma, but I'll explain it in a particular way, and then we will discuss how our dharma is dynamic. And the dynamism of dharma is what enables us to deal with different situations expertly. So basically, each one of us, we belong to various larger wholes. We belong to a family, we belong to a community, we belong to a country, we belong to a particular professional group. Like that, each one of us belongs to many groups. And among these, the supreme, to which the larger collective, which contains all other collectives, that is Krishna. So I could have, we are a part of a family, community, country. I could go on. And then ultimately, it's Krishna. So normally, when we are functioning in a particular collective, for us to function harmoniously in any collective, for us to be satisfied members of that collective, what is required? Want to get a chair? With that chair, there's a chair behind. No, no, you can be comfortable. There's a chair, you can sit here. Like, they have got a chair from there. So thank you. So, when we belong to particular collectives, in every collective that we belong to, there is a reciprocation that goes on. We do something for the collective, and the collective does something for us. So, dharma, if we understand from this perspective, dharma is what the individual does for the collective, and dharma is also what the collective does for the individual. So, for example, in Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita 2.7, Krishna is asked by Arjuna, Pruchhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. Dharma sammudha chetaha is, I don't know what is my dharma. That is the individual asking, what should I do? What is the right thing for me to do? I'll explain the word dharma a little bit more, but let's look at this understanding. The other sense in which Krishna uses the word dharma is dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. When he's saying, I come to establish dharma, what he's meaning is, he's not telling Arjuna, this is your duty. The word meaning of dharma, and if I come to establish dharma means that I come to establish the social order. So the idea is, everyone is expected to do some duty. But it's never one way. If I am expected to do some duty, I am expected to get some return. If we belong to a country, the country expects us to pay taxes. But if we are paying taxes, the country is expected to give some basic utilities. So that is the reciprocation. So dharma is in one sense both ways. We do something for the collective we belong to, and the collective does something for us. Now when both work together, that is the time when dharma leads to artha. Artha is basically the generation of value. So for example, you are right now here for this talk. Now your dharma is that you keep your phone silent, you pay attention, you don't chit chat. Now that at the same time, it is not one way. If here I represent the collective, then it is my dharma to speak something worth paying attention to. So when both of us do our dharma properly, at the end of the session we will feel we got something of value. I felt that, okay, I shared something of value. You will feel that, okay, you learned something of value. So artha is basically value generation. So dharma is that which generates value. Now, so dharma in that sense is not just morality, it's not just duty, it's not just religion. All these terms are included within it. But dharma is the operational principle for all of existence. That all of existence functions through reciprocity. We do something for the collective that we belong to, and the collective does something for us. Now things can go wrong in two ways. So for us, especially when we talk about facing adversity, what that essentially means is that we are in a particular situation and we are doing something for the collective. Let me use colors over here. Say, okay, first let me start this. Like I do something for the collective, but the collective does very little for me. Then I feel that this is terrible. You work very diligently for the company, and the company doesn't pay you much. And especially if somebody else works just as much and they are paid much more. If the collective is not rewarding us for what we are getting. Now this could go even worse, that sometimes if we go downwards, what could happen is that we might be doing good and the collective might be doing bad to us. And so this is dharmasya glani. This is the disruption of dharma. So when we are a part of a larger collective, and this collective can be anything. It could be a country, it could be a community, it could be a family, it could be even our body. We may say that throughout my life I have taken care of my diet, I have exercised, I have been very careful, and still I got cancer. What a horrible thing. What happened over here? So what happens? Sometimes we, while belonging to a collective, we may do our part, but we may get nothing in return. And that's the time when things feel terrible for us. So generally, when we talk about obstacles, reversals in our life, it is basically that we are belonging to some collective, and within that collective, we are not getting what we expected. Not just what we expected, we may think what we deserve. So the idea is, we do something for a family member or a relative. We go out of it to help them, to serve them. And then in a moment of time, they don't offer us any help. Or worse still, they backstab us. And it can feel terrible. So all obstacles ultimately, they boil down to this. That we belong somewhere, and in that place where we belong, we feel we have invested a lot, we have contributed a lot, and we are not getting any reciprocation, any commensurate reciprocation. So let's try to understand this a little more from the perspective of, say, the Pandavas now. Now, the Pandavas, if you look at the journey of the Pandavas, so if you look at the journey of the Pandavas, initially they were in the forest. Now, while they were in the forest, their father taught them how to live in the forest. They learned weapons to some extent. The fathers, of course, there to protect them. They learned to serve and respect the sages. Now, from the forest, suddenly their father passed away. And the forest was dangerous, so they had to come to the kingdom. Now, when they came to the kingdom, what happened? Here, the collective is represented by Dhritarashtra. He is the king. And Dhritarashtra's son is Duryodhana. So the Pandavas were trying to be good members of the royalty. The Pandavas generally much more courteous than the Kauravas. And they were diligent. And what happened? At that particular time, Duryodhana tried to poison Bhima. He tried to have him killed. This is horrendous. At that point, when Bhima came back, somehow he survived and came back, he was enraged. He said, I'm going to teach Duryodhana a lesson, I'm going to beat him up. So Yudhishthira said, calm down. He said, we are new here, and it will simply be your word against his word. You don't have any evidence that he poisoned you. And we don't know who will support us. We don't want to tear our family apart. Better lay low. Let's be cautious. Maybe Duryodhana is just insecure. If he doesn't see us as a threat, maybe he will cool down. So at this particular point, what the Pandavas did, they decided, let me tolerate. So the environment was treating them unfairly, but they decided, okay, maybe this will change. So initially, when the poisoning happened at that time, they tolerated. Now, after that, the next thing that happened was, there was arson. Arson is what? Lakshagraha, okay. I was in India, again nowadays a lot of Indians are trying to learn English. Now ChatGPT has made it a little easy. I was talking to our son, he says, whose son? So now, at that time, the Pandavas decided that this is not a small scheme. To poison someone is, okay, still difficult, but it's not that difficult. But to build a whole palace, to build it of inflammable material, and then to have it burned down, says, we don't know who all are involved in this. So the Pandavas decided, this is too dangerous an environment to be in. So what happened? Now, the Lakshagraha was also a part of their kingdom only. That was in another part, but it was still, Varnava was still a part of the kingdom. So when this happened, the Pandavas, so they were still trying to be good citizens. They didn't have to go, but Dhritarashtra said, go to Varnava and be with our citizens there. You can be a representative over there for those people. Now when this poisoning happened, when this arson happened, the Pandavas decided to leave. They went on Ajnatavas. They decided that in this particular larger collective, things are not working out. So let me move out of here. And so this is, you can say the other extreme, emigrate. When I am a part of a collective and that collective is just hurting me, is not recognizing me, not rewarding me, but is penalizing me, minimizing me, deriding me, threatening me, then everybody said, why should I belong to this collective? So they emigrated from there. Now they stayed low, they laid low till the point when they won Draupadi's hand. At that time now they were no longer fugitives, they were no longer orphans. They were now sons-in-law of a very powerful rival king. Dhritarashtra could no longer neglect them. Dhritarashtra welcomed them back and gave them half of the kingdom. But this was half in name only. It's like, there is one plate of food and some guests come. They say, okay, I'll give you half of it. But one half of the plate is all delicious, fresh food. Other half is completely rotten or stinking or old, stale food. And you give that to someone. You say, I give you half food. It is saying that this is half of the food is an insult to the word half. Isn't it? So they gave him the barren land. But the Pandavas left. So again, they emigrated. Okay, things are not working out over here. They moved away from there. And then what happened? The other collective that they went to, the Pandavas went here to Indraprastha. Khandaprastha they made it to Indraprastha. So they went here to another collective, and here they made the collective, they put in a lot of effort, and then that place became prosperous. So the idea is that we, the collective we belong to, we are not bound to that. We are bound to ultimately Krishna. And there could be some collectives in which things never work out for us. Now that doesn't mean simply we walk out of there. I'll come to this a little bit later. But now finally after this, Duryodhan would not let them live peacefully over there also. He had them, challenged them to come for a gambling match. And then he cheated and defrauded them of the entire kingdom, tried to dishonor Draupadi. The Pandavas said, okay. Again, they, to honor their vows, they emigrated. And after 13 years of exile, when the kingdom was supposed to be given back to them, they refused. So again, dharma is, they told Dhritarashtra, the gambling match happened in your presence. We have honored our terms. We stayed in exile. Now it is time for you to honor our terms, your terms, honor those same terms actually, honor your word, and give us the kingdom back. Dhritarashtra tried to back out, weasel his way out. Krishna himself went as a peace messenger. And what happened? Duryodhan tried to arrest Krishna himself. Now this was the final tipping point for the Pandavas. That Duryodhana had tried to insult their wife and Duryodhana had tried to insult their lord. And this showed that he had no change of heart. He had no remorse at all. And at that particular point, the Pandavas decided to, when the system is not working, then the system itself has to be changed. The Pandavas decided to mitigate. Mitigate means they fought a war at that time. They fought a war to change the whole system itself. So broadly speaking, when we are a part of a larger collective, we have these three options: tolerate, mitigate, or emigrate. And all solutions to all problems fall in some ways within these three categories. Sometimes there may be a combination of all three, but every solution to every problem, or not necessarily solution, every approach to dealing with a particular problem. Sometimes there is no solution. If you are tolerating, there is not a solution, but it's an approach to dealing with the problem. So every approach to any problem falls in these three categories: tolerate, emigrate, mitigate. So with this understanding, now how is all this connected to our point of discussion? See, when we say that when we are functioning in any larger whole, now our primary expectation is, what am I going to get out of here? What is in it for me? And that's not an unreasonable expectation. That if we are going to go to a particular event, we are going to a particular party, we are going to go to a particular place, is there anything worthwhile for me over here? So asking it is not a wrong thing. But the problem becomes when our vision becomes very short-sighted. That maybe there is something in this for me, but not immediately. See, for a kid, whether they go to school or they go to a party, or a college student, should I go to college or go to a party? Now, we say from the party I will have a lot of fun. From college, I'll have a lot of assignments. So it may seem that what am I going to get out of here may not seem of immediate value. So that's why that reciprocation that comes from a larger whole, it often does not come immediately. Who would like to read the next paragraph over here? Yes, please.
Oh, infallible Lord, this expectation-centered mindset becomes infected to an epidemic magnitude whenever I come across any promise of yours. I start agonizing over the question of why this promise has not been fulfilled, when it will be fulfilled, if at all, and whether it is even true. I end up paralyzing myself with doubt, or even poisoning my devotion with cynicism.
Yeah. So basically, when life feels unfair to us, and for everyone, life feels unfair sometime or the other. So when we say life feels unfair, what essentially it means is that this whole situation, I am putting in a lot of effort and I am getting very little return. I'm not getting a recognition, I'm not getting a remuneration, I'm not getting anything at all. So at that situation, what do we do? So the key point is that while I may be putting in efforts over here and I may not be getting results, but this larger collective does not exist independently. That larger collective exists within Krishna. And while I am a part of the larger collective, I may belong to that collective presently. But that is not where I belong to exclusively or permanently. I may be in a particular job, I may be in a particular family, I may be in a particular locality, I may be in a particular body. And any of those conditions could be painful, could be frustrating. And so this belonging, it is never exclusive. We don't belong here alone. And this belonging is never permanent. So much of the misery that comes in our life is not just because of the event that happens. It is because of how much we identify with that event, how much we take that event personally. That is, how much we reduce our identity to that larger collective of which we are a part. Let me explain this with an example. See, everyone will experience loss in life. Loss could be, we could lose a job, we could lose outside competitive exam, we could lose in a relationship. Now, when we experience loss, there are three ways to process that loss. One is objective. I have lost. We could say this is the sattva. We cannot live in denial. I have not lost. Yes, I have lost. But if we are so I had a job and I lost the job. But if I am over-invested in it, my reaction will be, I am lost. Not just I have lost, but I am lost. If somebody says a software engineer, and they identify, not say software engineer, let's take some specialist field, like say a surgeon. Somebody has worked very hard to be a surgeon, and they get in some car crash or something, and their hand gets permanently injured. Then what happens? That particular career path is permanently closed for them. So if somebody could be practically in terms of skills invested in the area or emotionally invested in it. What am I going to do now? I am lost. This is rajas. Where now that loss is true, but how I perceive it depends on me. The most damaging we might process it is, I am a loser. This is where we take it the most personally, and this can be the most damaging. This is tamas. So, for example, now in India, when I am in talks in colleges, I'm invited to IITs and NITs to give talks. And one of the themes which the faculty often talks about is that we have promising young students who sometimes end their lives. They get some bad marks in exams and they end their lives. And now they say, oh, life is tough, they can't take the pressure. So in general, if you see, the attitudes towards suicide have changed over the last 50 or 70 years. In the Eastern tradition, as in the Western tradition, in Christianity, Catholicism, in Catholic Church especially, suicide was considered a sin against God. And it is somebody fails to commit suicide and they are put in jail for having tried to commit suicide. So it is like that. Somebody, if succeeds in commit suicide, they would not be allowed to be cremated in the church. So the idea is that suicide was seen as a failure of the individual. You are weak. You cannot face life. You are a weakling. Now slowly, the pendulum is shifting in the other direction. And if somebody commits suicide, what are their circumstances? Did their boss put too much pressure on them? Are the faculty, if their students are committing suicide, are the faculty putting too much pressure on them? So slowly that social awareness is coming up. But the point is that getting bad marks is not a good thing, or getting not so good marks is not a good thing, but it's not something worth ending one's life for. Now, why would they do that? Because somehow marks have become their identity. If I don't get good marks in my exam, then I am a nobody. Then I am worthless. So when we reduce our identity to one particular collective in which we are living, and we have no sense, we start thinking, this is the situation I am in, this is who I am. Oh, I failed in this exam, so I am a failure. I lost this opportunity, so I am a loser. So I said, what happens over here is, this identity becomes my exclusive identity. And when that happens, it becomes the exclusive identity, that itself is a problem. And if somebody thinks this is the permanent identity, that's even more problematic. So our dharma, the nature of the world is that in some of the areas we belong to, some of the collectives we belong to, we may get a bad deal over there. Things may just not work out over there. So the key over there is that we should not reduce our identity to that collective. So Arjuna was thinking that Arjuna was torn between two collectives at the start of the Bhagavad Gita. One collective was his Kula Dharma, the other was his Kshatriya Dharma. Kula Dharma is, he is a part of a particular larger collective. And now he is thinking, I have to kill them. How can I do that? What kind of horrible person would do that? But it's significant that while Arjuna is thinking about, oh, all of these are my relatives, in Arjuna's mind at that time, what that collective had done to him, he doesn't mention that at all. He doesn't say, these are the people who tried to steal my kingdom, they dishonored my wife, they tried to kill my brother, all the atrocities that they did. That is not in his mind. So he has tried, so this is what, this was done to him, and now this he has to do. So he's hesitating, thinking that, how can I do this? But the point is that his belonging to the Kuru dynasty was not going to work out. Because the collective at that particular time was the Dhritarashtra, who was completely controlled by Duryodhana. And Duryodhana was wicked, vicious, evil. So now, Krishna told him at this point, and what happened is, the collective, this particular verse, what is it? Tasmat tamuttishta yasholabhasu, arise and attain victory. So what that means is, in this collective, you contribute. As a Kshatriya Dharma, you contribute, and if you contribute to the Kshatriya Dharma, there is an abundant reward waiting for you over here. So this we can call it as psychological flexibility. What I mean by this is that which larger collective I identify with, the capacity to be able to adapt that, to change that is required for every one of us. Psychological flexibility means that in one particular collective, things may just not work for me, and maybe in a particular relationship in my family, some people just don't value me. And no matter what we do for them, we do 100 things for them, and they only criticize us for the 101st thing that we did not do. Now that doesn't mean that we have to reject that relationship or condemn that relationship. But the point is, things may not work there. But just because things are not working in one larger collective does not mean that they will not work in any other collective. So that capacity to recognize that I have many dharmas, I belong to many larger realities, and in some of those realities things may not work out, but in some others they may work out. So where they will work out, that is what we need to explore. And I talk about tolerate, mitigate, and immigrate. These are ways of deciding, okay, this larger collective, it's difficult right now for me. Say, if a student comes for higher studies to, say, a country like Australia, now maybe the education here is better, the career prospects here are better than India. So eventually the collective will give greater rewards. But right now, as a student, you may feel lonely, you may feel lost. It's a different culture, you don't have any of a family. So right now, it's going to be a difficult phase. So we may have to tolerate it that time. So the idea is, when we belong to a particular collective, larger collective, we need to have the psychological flexibility. Let's look at this a little bit more now. Who would like to read the next paragraph? Would you like to read? Yes, please. Yes, thank you. So, yesterday I gave this example that the Ganga always moves towards the ocean. Now, when the Ganga moves towards the ocean, sometimes it is blocked and it finds some other way to move towards the ocean. So like that, for all of us, we understand that, yes, I am a part of a larger collective, but ultimately I am a part of Krishna. And my consciousness is meant to move towards Krishna. That Krishna cares for me and I care for Krishna. That here, Krishna does something for me and I do something for Krishna. It's a reciprocation of bhakti. But sometimes, in some channels, the pathway gets blocked. That if it is not going through that particular collective, that means it may have to go through some other collective. So if this seems a little abstract, let's take a few examples. That how, I said, psychological flexibility means that when we are functioning in life, we have multiple parts of us that are parts of larger collective. So each one of us has a particular gender, has a particular educational level, particular income level, particular maybe neighborhood we live in, particular ethnicity. So each one of us has many belongings, many larger belongings. So many of you know that I need crutches for walking. When I was one, my mother took me, and I was staying in a small town in Maharashtra. My mother took me to get a polio vaccine. At that time, polio was quite rampant. But unfortunately, that was a small town, and the clinic where that polio vaccine was to be administered had a power supply outage the previous night. And because of that, the fridge in which the vaccine had been kept had got contaminated, it got heated. But neither the attendant nor the physician noticed it. And when I was given that vaccine, instead of preventing polio, it ended up causing polio. Now, I was just learning to take my first steps and I fell down. I could never walk normally thereafter. I don't have any memory of this. It's too small. But my first memory of this was when I was about 2.5 or 3. And a distant relative had come to our home. And she was consoling my mother, saying, "It's so sad your son got polio." And I still remember my mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident. She said, "Whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually." Thank you. Now, I don't know why she said that, whether she had seen some intellectual ability in me at that time, or whether it was her hope, her prayer, her blessing. But somehow that stayed with me. And as I grew up, I found that, yes, I was good at studies. I could read rapidly. I could remember well. I could articulate clearly. I could analyze deeply. And so I started focusing on studies and doing well in my studies. Now, there was a kid in our neighborhood who was very good at athletics. And I was zero in athletics, any kind of athletics. So he would make fun of me, mock me, use words like cripple. Now, I was more annoyed than hurt by that. But one day, my mother called me and she said that this boy's mother had approached her. And he said he was struggling in maths at school and I was good at maths. So I immediately understood where this conversation is going. And she said she has requested that I should help him in maths. I said, "No, I'm not going to help him." And then my mother said, no, they are our neighbors and he's your friend. I shook my head even more vigorously. He's not my friend. So, but my mother insisted. So then I agreed. Now, when I sat down with him and tried to explain maths, within 15 minutes, I felt as if the space between his ears was empty. He just didn't seem to have any intellectual capacity to understand things. At that time, one part of me wanted to laugh at him, but something stopped me. And maybe later I articulated it consciously, but at that time the point was that I had a physical limitation and he was laughing at me for that. Now he had an intellectual limitation. And if I laugh at him for that, what is the difference between me and him? So now I could always ask this question that, what did I do to deserve this polio? And that's a valid question. What did I do to deserve this physical disability? But then I could turn around and ask the question, what did I do to deserve this intellectual ability? So the idea is that each one of us, we belong. So if I consider that my physical situation is one belonging and my intellectual situation is another belonging. So in the physical situation, what has happened? The body has dealt a raw deal with me. But in the intellectual situation, the collective has given me something. Now, in the physical level, no matter how much effort I put in, there's not going to be much change that I can make. But at the intellectual level, if I put in efforts, I can make change over here. So when I said psychological flexibility is that, it is my mother's blessing that I don't identify whenever anybody sees me, the first thing they see are my crutches. But for me, my crutches are like my glasses. Now, I can't function without my glasses, but they don't occupy a lot of head space. Oh, I have to wear glasses, I have to wear glasses. No, just put on glasses and move on with life. Like that, pick up crutches and move on with life. So that is largely because of that my mother's statement, I would say. So the thing is that for every one of us, there will be some collectives, some larger part which we belong to, where we will feel that we are being treated unfairly. And that is true, no doubt about it. But there will also be some larger collectives where we can find that we were treated well. Maybe we had in our family, we had some relative, maybe some this person, that person, who was always critical of us. But maybe we had some relative who was very kind to us also, going out of their way to be kind to us. Maybe in school there was a bully. Maybe there was a teacher who was very kind to us. So what happens is, for us, if you can look at, that there is some part of it is unfair. But there is a part of it which is also fair. So in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. Fairly unfair. It is unfair in some areas and fair in some areas. So our dharma, so when I talked about going back to our starting point, I said that when we face difficult situations in life, should I tolerate, should I mitigate, should I emigrate? The first point before I decide any of these is that I appreciate. I appreciate that it is that Krishna's plan is still there in my life. This is not this particular bad thing has happened. It is not the end of the world. That's why first, now within Krishna's plan, what is the best thing I can do? That's something I need to decide. So each of these three approaches, if we use this acronym MET, that we have to meet our situation, contemplate on that situation, and decide whether I mitigate, emigrate, or what is the third thing? Tolerate. So now, if we don't appreciate, then what will happen is we will do each of these. Anyway, we have to do one of these. We cannot. We have no third option. But we can do all of these in a negative consciousness. So instead of mitigate, we retaliate. You did this to me, so I'll do this to you. And our life can go on. Our life can just go on endlessly, just fighting this fight and fighting that fight and fighting that fight. So, one devotee recently told me about how he was facing a lot of problems. So I replied to him in a message. And sometimes when we speak or write something, it strikes us, okay, this is something amazing. So I'm planning to maybe write an article or a book about this. But the point is that what I said is, human life is too valuable to be wasted in being human. What I mean by that is, this person hurt me and I want to get back at him. That is a completely understandable feeling. It's a human feeling. But, human feelings, we cannot suppress them, we cannot reject them, we cannot deny them. But our spirituality is greater than our humanity. So sometimes, yes, this person did this to me, it was a bad thing, but I don't want to waste my life getting back at this person. So otherwise, our whole life can become a whole, not just our life, it can go multiple lifetimes. There are revenge sagas that go on for generations at times, isn't it? So we may say this is wrong and it has to be fixed. Yes, that is true. But there are many things wrong in the world. Which wrong is worth fixing for me? So we don't want to get into retaliate. Now, emigrate is not run away. When we are emigrating, the idea is that what I want to do, what I can contribute, it doesn't work out over here. So I'll go to some other place. Run away is more in fear of the situation. Rather, so it's like Krishna has given me some gifts, Krishna has given me some interest, Krishna has given me some inspiration. I cannot make it happen over here. So I'll go somewhere else. So emigrate is more from the perspective of there is a higher thing for me to do and that doesn't work over here. So the emigrate is very different from run away. And tolerate is also, if it is done without Krishna consciousness, with a higher consciousness, will suffocate. So tolerate is not, oh, I can't do anything about this, so I tolerate it. Yes, practically it may be true. But we tolerate not just because we can't do anything about this. It is that I tolerate because in this situation, while I have to endure this, there is something of greater value I can do. That yes, maybe so if, for example, we are in a company where the boss is not very pleasant. Now, I don't like this boss. Maybe true. But if the pay is well, if the future career chart is good for us, so we tolerate. Now, we are tolerating not just because we are helpless. Now, from a functional perspective, we may be helpless. But the focus of tolerance is not our helplessness. The focus is that there is some higher purpose I can serve. There is some higher purpose I can serve. Now, in every family, there will be some difficulties. Now, somebody said that, okay, for the sake of our children, we will deal with all this. We'll tolerate this. So now the point is, there is a higher purpose for which we are doing it. And now, does tolerance have limits? Of course. So the purpose of life is not tolerance. The purpose of life is ultimately to serve Krishna. And if you see what Krishna tells Arjuna, tolerate, tam sitikshaso bharata. He's not telling Arjuna, tolerate the Kauravas' atrocities. Oh, they tell me badly, but this is just the way life is. Life is dukkha, tolerate it. Now his point is, tolerate the pain of fighting against Bhishma and Drona and do your duty. So I'll make one last point over here about what does appreciate and mitigate, emigrate, tolerate, what it means for us practically. Who would like to read the last paragraph? Yes, yes, please. Okay. Please, yeah. Sure, go ahead.
O Supreme Friend, just as Arjun fought the war diligently without worrying when your divine arrangement to destroy his enemies would manifest, empower me to follow in his footsteps. Let me work on doing my part, not worry about when you will do your part.
Yes. So either of these, tolerate, mitigate, immigrate, it may not be that they are going to bear results immediately. So if we understand that Krishna has a plan and I have a part in that plan. Now how do we decide when to tolerate, when to emigrate, when to retaliate? That requires intelligence. Now intelligence, Prabhupada defines in the 10th chapter purport, intelligence means to see things in their proper perspective. Now, what does proper perspective mean? Sometimes if you take a selfie, what happens? The person who is taking the selfie, their face becomes very big. And then they say, okay, I don't like this, let's take a normal photo. So, things should be in the same size that they actually are. So, intelligence means to understand what are the big things in our life and what are the small things in our life. And when we have intelligence, that is the basis of tolerance. Tolerance means that we keep small things small so that we can keep big things big. So this is the sequence in the Bhagavad Gita. Before 2.14 tolerance comes 2.13 intelligence. Dehinosmin yatha dehe, Krishna says. So Krishna is saying tolerate the pain of fighting against Bhishma and Drona. What is he implying over there? The big thing for you here is that, what is the big thing, what is the small thing? The big thing is that Bhishma and Drona are not their bodies, they are the souls. You may have to hurt their bodies, but you can help them advance, their souls advance towards a higher destination. So understanding what is a big thing and what is a small thing is vital. And for most of us, if we have not done this homework of understanding what is a big thing and what is a small thing. So this can go wrong if we do not have intelligence. no intelligence, we can go wrong in two ways. One is we make a small thing big. Now this is intolerance. This is where we end up, some small issue becomes very big and there's a big fight over this, and then the fight goes on and on and on. But the other extreme is we make a big thing small. That will be the opposite. We can use the word impotence or powerlessness or weakness over here. Potency is power. So we let ourselves become powerless. So both of these are unhealthy. Now with intelligence, when we tolerate, what it means is we keep the small things small so that we can keep the big things big. Okay, I come to learn the class. Yeah, but I came for 1 hour, not 3.5 hours. So the idea is that for us, different things may be small and big at different times. Now, for suppose somebody absolutely needs a chair, and otherwise they have severe back pain or they're very uncomfortable, and they decide, no, I want to sit for the class, and they sit. But they're sitting on the floor, but throughout the time when they're sitting on the floor, their body is in pain. And they just can't hear anything in the class. And then that pain keeps following them for days after that. Now what was it? Okay, sitting on the chair is not that big a thing, isn't it? Sitting on the floor is not that important. Okay, find a chair, ask somebody for a chair. It might be a little inconvenient, but somebody can get a chair. So it is important for us whenever we enter into any situation, especially a situation that is likely to become high stakes. That remind ourselves, what is the big thing over here? What is the small thing over here? So when we do this, that helps us to decide. So if some small thing is being obstructed, I can tolerate it. But if a big thing is being obstructed, then either I have to mitigate or I have to emigrate. So in this way, for us, the flow of our consciousness towards Krishna can always keep moving ahead. And this is something which we have to constantly reflect and decide. It is not, that's why Dharma I started by saying is dynamic. How can I serve Krishna in the situation I am in right now? So I belong to a particular collective right now. In this collective, in this job, in this family, in this country, in this community, how can I serve Krishna right now? Now Prabhupada exhibited this dynamism. You can see quickly, I'll conclude this quick example, how Prabhupada also exhibited his tolerate, mitigate, immigrate at different times. And Prabhupada started his, he was in the Grahastha ashram and he was trying very diligently to serve Krishna, but it just didn't work out. Then he started a League of Devotees in Jhansi, the organization. He worked very hard over there. He had a grand opening for it. But the people who were there turned against him. And now Prabhupada had the legal deed for the place. He could have fought for it. But Prabhupada decided it's not worth it. He said that the big thing was he wanted to share Krishna consciousness. And his Guru Maharaj said that better start with big cities. And he saw these people are also not very serious. They're more pious than spiritually dedicated. So Prabhupada decided to walk away from there. So we see Prabhupada in Jhansi. He decided to emigrate. So why? Because for him, that place was not the big thing. Preaching was the big thing, and he felt even if I get this place, I fight for this, get this place, the people here are not that serious. What is the point of it? So if you can say, what is the place, here the purpose was preaching. That was the big thing. And the place, the venue, the center over there, was a small thing. Now after that, Prabhupada managed to go to America. He came to Butler, Pennsylvania. Now he was sponsored and hosted by the Agarwal family. The Gopal and Sally Agarwal, he was staying at their homes. And now they were completely unprepared to host a sannyasi. And Sally Agarwal is an Indian who had married an American lady, so she said that she had some understanding of Indian sensitivities. He said, Swamiji, we have only one fridge over here. And they had not just meat but beef in that fridge. And the bhoga that Prabhupada was, with which he was making his offerings to Krishna, Prabhupada had to keep that in the same fridge. And when Prabhupada was asked, she said, I'm sorry, Swami. Prabhupada said, think nothing about it. Now, why think nothing about it? Because where he was there, for him the big thing was not preaching to the hosts. See, Prabhupada was very dynamic, but Prabhupada was not artificially pushy. Staying in a few days at the Agarwals, he realized that these are not people who are interested in bhakti. They had sponsored him and hosted him as a favor or as a service to their father-in-law, who had a father-in-law who had requested them. They don't even expected Prabhupada to come. But Prabhupada had come. So Prabhupada decided the big thing is again preaching. So he said that venue, again the home where I'm staying, that is a small thing. Now when Prabhupada was in Juhu, he established Krishna consciousness in America, then he came to Juhu. Now in there what happened? We got a good property, but the owner of that property was going to sell it. He was a double dealing person. He wanted to take the money and not give the land also. When he tried to do that, Prabhupada said that if he wants to steal Krishna's land, he will have to go over my dead body. And literally Prabhupada had to fight, not just metaphorically, but literally that person, the owner, sent gundas and tried to demolish the temple, and devotees were attacked. They fought on. So here, Prabhupada decided the preaching is important, and for the preaching, in this case, the venue is important. Why? Because Juhu was prime property, Mumbai was the economic capital of India, and Prabhupada had grand plans. And not only Prabhupada had grand plans, Prabhupada at this time also had resources. He had dedicated disciples who were ready to serve. So after getting a center, he had the means to utilize that center. So he decided, this is worth fighting. So the trouble of fighting, the trouble of confronting, he decided that that is a small temporary thing. So that's why, so here Prabhupada decided to tolerate, but here Prabhupada decided to mitigate. So the idea is that at different places, each one of us needs to decide in our life what is the big thing and what is the small thing. And yes, sometimes the big thing may also get blocked. Now when the big thing gets blocked, that time we may have to decide that how do I deal with it? Do I migrate or do I mitigate? But in general, in the moment, everything appears to be the big thing. That's why Ma Manusmara is very important. Because whenever there's an argument, what happens is, winning the argument becomes the big thing. But we win the argument and lose the relationship. So is winning the argument really the big thing? Maybe, maybe not. That's why in the heat of the moment, everything, if we are a little bit in Rajoguna, everything will appear to be the big thing. And we'll start fighting over everything. If I'm in Tamoguna, we'll go into self-pity. Nobody listens to me, everybody dominates me, everybody walks over me. So one more time it happens, what can I do? And we'll cave in. So we want to avoid both of this. So we find a way by first looking up and then looking ahead. I'll summarize what I discussed today. Today was a little more conceptual class, but I'll try to explain it in the way. 3 main points I talked about. First was, yesterday's theme was that learning to live with pain, like looking beyond the pain to Krishna. But today was growing through suffering, finding meaning in suffering and growing through suffering. So what do we do practically? After, I'm remembering Krishna, I'm not seeing this problem as the end of my world, but then what do I do after that? So in that, I talked about dharma as belonging. So we all belong to certain collectives. In fact, we belong to a number of collectives. And the largest collective we belong to is Krishna. So the ideal dharma is basically what? What we do for the collective and what the collective does for us. So the balance is when both are in reciprocation. But many times it may happen that in a particular collective, we may do a lot, but we may get very little. And that's when we feel frustrated. So this will happen to everyone sooner or later. And so the key thing is, dharma can help us to develop psychological flexibility. Psychological flexibility means that I do not reduce, if I belong to a particular collective, I do not think that this belonging is exclusive or it is permanent. This is my situation, this is how it is going to be forever. No. That it's not permanent. That's why when loss comes, I don't have to think I am a loser. We do not want this, definitely. We don't even want I am lost. What we would like, okay, I have lost. This particular thing is not working out. So what do I do? So I have to see which larger collective can I work in. So I give how my mother told me that whatever lacks physically, God will provide intellectually. So life is fairly unfair. So sometimes we are a part of a collective. There, whatever we do, the collective is going to give a lot negative for us. But we may also be a part of another collective where it is fair to us. The psychological flexibility is we learn, okay, in this collective things may not work out, but that doesn't mean they will not work out anywhere. So then that is the collective where we focus on where we can move ahead. And then when we are in a particular part of a collective, so after psychological flexibility, the third part is we gain intellectual clarity. With our intelligence, we try to gain clarity. That clarity is what? We understand what are the big things in our life and what are the small things. And then based on this understanding, if I consider that I'm a part of a larger collective, then I have three options. Either I mitigate, or I emigrate, or I tolerate. And we discussed the examples of Srila Prabhupada as well as the Pandavas. How the Pandavas initially tolerated, then emigrated, then mitigated. Now Prabhupada also, if you see, initially he emigrated, then he tolerated, then he mitigated. So by this, if we look up first to Krishna, our instinctive reaction will be to make every small thing very big. So the opposite of mitigate would be, we may spend our time in retaliating. We do not want. Human life is too precious to be wasted in being human. Instead of emigrating, we'll keep running away, which is not healthy. Instead of tolerating, we'll keep suffocating. So what we want is be clear. So when a problem comes up, instead of in the moment believing this is the biggest thing and I have to deal with it, we focus on really connecting with the biggest thing. Remember Krishna, look up, and then with that connection with Krishna, we will get a better perspective. What is really the big thing? What is worth fighting and what is worth living with? And that way we can grow through that difficulty. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. I think all of you are eager to immigrate now. Yes, Prabhu.
You have taken two examples like Guru Dharma, the example you were talking about. Okay, this is Guru Dharma, and then another example was around the bigger Dharma which he has to do, right? And in that case, we had Krishna who was able to tell him like option A and option B. In your example as well, like it's a physical capability or intellectual capability. Someone was there, like your mother who told us. And intellectually, you were not able to take a decision, or let's say the Arjuna. How do we find that? Who can actually guide us between A and B? How do we find that?
Yeah, it's a good question. See, there are two different points over here. That for Arjuna, Krishna is his acts as his guru. Krishna is his spiritual master. And we all need spiritual guides. At the same time, if we look at the way Krishna teaches, that Krishna could simply have given instruction to Arjuna. Krishna could have completed the whole Bhagavad Gita in 6 words. I am God, obey me, fight. Bhagavad Gita, Sampurnam. Now Krishna does not do that. Because Krishna's purpose is not just to give a decision to Arjuna. Krishna's purpose is to give a decision-making framework to Arjuna, so that he can think for himself and decide for himself. And that's its success is seen in when later on an Ashwatthama is to be pursued and punished. So there are 2 groups. Yudhishthira is saying forgive him, Bhima is saying punish him. And Krishna is there with Arjuna, but Krishna does not speak anything. So Arjuna makes a decision on his own, and that pleases Krishna. And at least at that time he can see Krishna's pleasure. But then when Krishna departs from the world, at that time Arjuna has to take a decision. That time Krishna is not there to instruct him, Krishna is not there to show his pleasure also. But then Arjuna takes shelter of the Gita. And that's how he finds some shelter over there. So the point is that we need guides. But the purpose of the Guru, how we approach the Guru is very important. That we can never outsource our intelligence to someone else. Deciding what is a big thing and what is a small thing is something which ultimately we have to do. So for really big decisions, we should always consult senior devotees, consult our spiritual guides, consult our spiritual master. But over a period of time, the success of the spiritual master is not to replace our intelligence, but to refine our intelligence. That we need to be able to make decisions ourselves. Nobody is going to be there to guide us constantly. That doesn't mean we reject the need for guidance or reject guidance when it's available. But we cannot become chronically dependent on that. We now need to develop our own inner compass. So the study of the Gita, the association of devotees, that helps to slowly refine our compass. And as we take specific guidance for major issues, we also learn from that. So it's not that, again, necessarily that one course of action is always the right course of action. Like 2 people may be in a difficult job situation. So one may tolerate, another may migrate. A third may mitigate also. Now who is right? It depends. Different people may be in different situations, different economic situations, different stages in their career journey. They may even be of different dispositions. Some people are more confrontational, some people are more non-confrontational. That's why it's not that dharma is one for everyone. Ultimately, yes, everyone's dharma is to love Krishna, serve Krishna and reach Krishna. But practically, like all rivers, ultimately they are meant to go to the ocean. But practically, each river has to find its own path to the ocean. Okay? Thank you. Yes, please.
Regarding to the tolerance, you're asking to tolerance. How we know, okay, is it time for us to tolerance, and I kind of like, or okay, is enough, no more tolerating, okay, now kind of like need to do a different action. How we could know that part?
Okay, how do we know that this is going beyond the limit of tolerance? I'd say 2 main criteria. One is that, see, as I said, we belong to many other groups. We don't just belong to one collective. So now, if negative is coming to me from one collective, and that leads to my doing negative in all other collectives, that I am becoming disruptive. That means I have a very bad boss, and that bad boss is so troubling me so much that I come home and take it out on my family. That while driving in a car, I yell at every person who does something wrong. I think that there's something wrong. So if it is causing me to become disruptive, another way we could put it that if somebody comes in a particular such a difficult situation, they feel I can't deal with the situation, and that they think I'm going to commit suicide now. So where our own belonging to the body is being destroyed. or if somebody comes to the level of complete emotional breakdown. Now, emotional breakdown can be at various degrees, but as I said that generally, if a person is emotionally very fragile or volatile, what happens is a small trigger, huge reaction. That's why we say something is wrong with this person. When just like somebody has a physical wound, when the physical wound is there, what happens? That if once I was giving a seminar in auditorium in American university, as in the dais, and the organizer wanted to tell me something, so he came from behind, he tapped me on my shoulder. He tapped me, I almost screamed. I said, "What happened? I'm sorry." He said that actually I had fallen on the shoulder and I have some sprain over here. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. So what happens is when we have some injury, the result of that injury is small stimulus, huge reaction. So if that is happening to us, that somebody speaks something small and we just disproportionately explode, and not just one time, it keeps happening repeatedly again and again. That means something is going beyond our tolerance limit. Now what to do about it, whether we mitigate, whether we immigrate, now whether we permanently immigrate or we temporarily immigrate and come back. So we have to decide all that. But generally, the criteria is that if we become disruptive or destructive in other areas because of tolerating in one area, then that is not tolerating, that is suffocating us, and that suffocation is leading to an explosion somewhere else. Okay? Thank you. Yes, Chaitanya?
Prabhu, you talked about letting go yesterday, and tying it with today's session, I wanted to know when sometimes situations can become very complex and people let go, thinking that they're letting go, but they're actually spiritually bypassing or basically letting go of their material duties by escaping them and, performing spiritual activities more over the material activities, and they think that they are trying to let go of whatever is happening by not clinging on and trying to control. So what is your perspective on how to deal with that?
So, now connecting yesterday's topic of letting go and holding on, letting go is that I am belonging to a particular collective and their things are not going to work out. So I need to let go of that. So like for me, no matter how much I try physically, I'm not going to become a physical athlete. So that I have to let go of that. But there's what do I hold on to? Okay, I have my intellectual ability, I can grow in that area. So all of us need to decide that. Now the problem is that sometimes letting go can be a form of running away. That's why emigrating is different from running away. So Krishna consciousness is meant for guiding our life. It is not meant for hiding from life. What do I mean by hiding from life? That it's like it becomes a form of spiritual escapism, or you call it spiritual bypassing. So Krishna consciousness is for guiding our life. So sometimes we think, oh, this is a problem, let me get away from here. That is a problem, let me get away from here. If we start making Krishna consciousness as the path of least resistance, guiding our life, not hiding from life. Now sometimes we may say that, okay, this is not working, just let me leave this. This job is not working, this career is not working, this family is not working, just let me leave it all. No, the point is, we cannot arbitrarily give up our belonging in particular areas. And aversion to commitment is not detachment. Detachment is attraction to a higher reality. It is not just that, oh, this reality is troublesome, so I give it up. There's a big difference between frustration and renunciation. Now, frustration can lead to renunciation, but it's a different category. So, what is the difference? Renunciation is like fasting. Frustration is like starving. Now, what is the key difference over here? See, whenever we do an activity, there is the desire for it, and there is the capacity for it, capability for it. So if we are fasting, we have the capacity to get food, but we do not have the desire for food. But when we are starving, what happens is, we have the desire for food, but we don't have the capability for food. So frustration is often that I just can't fight over here. I don't want to fight over here. So I just quit. So I think we have to be very careful that we don't equate frustration with renunciation. Now in frustration, somebody can take shelter of Krishna, but that needs to be not a permanent escape way. I take shelter of Krishna and then I again look at my life and decide how I want to deal with my life. Now sometimes, as I said, frustration can lead to renunciation, no doubt. But to assume that my frustration itself is a sign of my renunciation or my devotion, that is a mistake. Okay? So Krishna can sometimes be speaking to us through the problems and pains of our life. And when we run away from those problems and pains, we are in one sense running away from Krishna. So we say, I am chanting Krishna's names. Yes, that is true and that is good. But if my chanting, I am trying to use the holy name to stay away from Krishna, who is manifesting in some other way to me, who is trying to teach something way to me. Okay? Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Very good. So another beautiful session. Thank you, Prabhu. That's very, very nice, especially the concept that you discussed, tolerate, emigrate, and mitigate, and before that, appreciate. It was beautiful. Thank you so much. Tolerance is to keep small things small so that we can focus on the big things. Big things, let's say, is Krishna or spirituality. And whatever we see as hurdle to that attainment, we treat it as small, isn't it? Krishna, so that we can focus on Krishna or Krishna-related activities. Krishna also says in the Gita that tolerance is the wall between temptation and transgression. He says that in 5.23. Such a beautiful point he makes there. And so to keep the small things small so that we can focus on the big thing, which is Krishna, is transgression the small thing? I mean, should we treat the transgression as the small thing? Or even temptations also are to be treated as small thing? Because temptations will come, as he says in 5.23.
Okay. That's a good point. See, tolerance, Krishna says, sukha, dukkha, both we need to tolerate. And generally we don't think of tolerating pleasure. We think of tolerating pain. So what do I mean by tolerating pleasure? So the idea is that if I consider this is the path of my life, and at the end of my path is Krishna. So there are two ways things can go wrong. One is some pain comes onto this path and that pain makes me want to quit this path. So in that case, understand the pain is temporary and tolerate that pain. Now the other way things can go wrong is some pleasure can come on this path and the pleasure can allure me away from that path. So that also needs to be tolerated. Yes. So in that case, what we understand is not the transgression is the small thing, it's the temptation is the small thing. So generally when temptation attacks us, what happens is it does not feel small at that time. Or rather, dhyayato vishayan pumsa. When it comes in, it is one thought. But it comes in one thought, and if we give it our thought, then it stops all thought. It just paralyzes us at that time. It overpowers our intelligence. So, buddhinashat pranashyati. So, tolerate the temptation means that they are small things. Don't dwell on them. When we dwell on them, they will become bigger and bigger, and then they will have big consequences for our life. So, one way to understand this metaphorically is, say, if this is, say, $5 million, and this is $5 pain, is somebody is taking $5 away from us, and this is somebody is offering us $5. So both are getting $5 is a gain, losing $5 is a pain, but both are small as compared to $5 million. So that's why Krishna says, Somrutattvaya kalpate. In the next verse, he'll say 2.15 that. If you can be steady in both of these, then that's what you can attain.
So even temptations have to be treated as small things, isn't it? And which Krishna himself says very difficult to control temptations. The transgression is something that we can.
See, the idea is that the earlier we can do it, the better it is. See, the example is that if somebody is riding on a horse, or somebody is riding a chariot, and the horse sees something by the track, by the side of the road. Maybe it sees a fruit or something or a vegetable. It starts running towards that. So as soon as the horse head turns, if you just pull the head back, it's relatively easier. Better is that we put blinders on the side of the horse so the horse can't see anything else. That is the best you can say. So, Vivasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunanda, like that. But if the horse sees something, pull it back. Now, the more the horse starts running, it gains momentum.
Yes.
And then pulling it back is very difficult. Now, one thing, it's never impossible. The horse may go off the track and may throw us off the ground. Now, we can get back on the road, we can get the horse back on the road. But the trouble is much more.
So more difficult, of course. Yeah.
So in that sense, the earlier we deal with it, it is effort in the beginning, but it's much lesser effort.
Yes.
I have a friend in the military, they have a saying that the more you sweat in peace, the less you will bleed in war.
Mm-hmm.
That means when you do your practice, you do your workouts, you do your training. So sweat in peace. The less you will bleed in war. Yes, bro, you had something?
Thank you. No, thank you so much.
Thanks. Yes, bro, yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
If it's hot, what if possible, yeah. Yeah.
So I just had a question in relation to reciprocity.
Yeah.
So you were talking earlier about reciprocity and things like, for example, you're part of some collective and you put in a lot of effort or energy or whatever it may be, but you don't get anything back in return. So that could be in work, family, anything. So we were saying that reciprocity is, in one sense, a natural part of life because you expect these things to function properly in society. On the other hand, we're all trying to be devotees, and one essential element of being a devotee is developing an attitude of selflessness. And especially when we're dealing with Krishna or Guru or devotees, we're trying to develop the attitude that I want to serve without expecting anything in return. So when we have our baggage of wanting reciprocity, and then we bring that to Krishna, so then Krishna, we put a lot of time and energy and so on in serving Krishna or devotees or whoever, but it seems like Krishna is not reciprocating, then we get upset. But at the same time, in one sense, it's natural because we always expected that in our normal day-to-day life. So how do we deal with that?
Can you be selfless if I don't reciprocate with this question? Okay. It's a slightly subtle concept, but I'll try to explain it. See, in any relationship, if I consider the relationship, there is an interaction. There are two different things. There is our personal gain. Now the personal gain, I'm using the word personal gain in a narrow sense over here, I'll explain further. The personal gain is the motive, or some kind of gain is a byproduct. They are two very different things. So there can be no relationship at all without reciprocation. At all. So even with Krishna, if there is a relationship, there has to be reciprocation. Yes, Krishna left the gopis and went away, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that Ashlishya vapadratam pinashtumam Adarshanam marmatam karotua Yatha tatha vidhatu lampato mat prananathas tu sevanaparaha. So he's saying that even if you don't reciprocate with me or reciprocate badly with me, still you will remain my Lord. So what that means is that your reciprocation is not the condition for my devotion. I will always be devoted to you. So it is not that a devotee will stop serving Krishna if Krishna does not reciprocate. But a devotee, that does not mean that a devotee does not want reciprocation from Krishna. Prabhupada in the Kapila, in the Kardam Muni section, he says that a devotee always desires to see the Lord, but a devotee never demands to see the Lord. So now if we don't desire to see the Lord, where is our bhakti? If we demand to see the Lord, where is our bhakti? Isn't it? So that idea that for us, expecting reciprocation from Krishna is in one sense natural. Now, is expectation the motivation for the service? Is it a byproduct for the service? So there's slight difference over there. Selfless does not mean it is necessarily less for the self. It is more for something bigger than the self. That means that I may not get anything back immediately for this, but still I get something back. That means a devotee who serves Krishna, the devotee may not be recognized by the world, but there is the satisfaction, the enrichment in the heart that comes. Now, if that satisfaction and enrichment or peace in the heart is also not coming, then we have to introspect. Am I doing something wrong over here? Maybe I am not practicing bhakti properly. Maybe I am committing offenses or whatever. Okay, I'll make another way I'll explain this whole thing. That when we talk about selfless love, there are two different components to it, and we cannot isolate the two. See, love itself means reciprocation. Now, of course, you can have one-sided love, but then that one-sided love means there's no relationship. It's like unrequited love. There are so many romantic songs about heartbreak and all that. Now, love might be there, but it's no relationship there. So a loving relationship can never be one way. So if you are talking about bhakti, it's a relationship, and therefore it cannot be one way. We are doing something and Krishna is doing nothing. So the selfless part in this case is that we are not attached to our expectations of how Krishna will reciprocate. But Krishna will reciprocate, and sometimes we may need to be patient. So it's not that expectations are necessarily the problem. It is more attachment to the expectations that is the problem. If we do a service, Prabhupada also said, Phalena parichayate. How is a Vaishnava known? By the phala, the results you get. But Prabhupada himself did not get results for so many years while he was trying to serve in India. He did not get discouraged by that. So expecting reciprocation is itself not the problem. That's not a deficiency in our devotion. It's not a sign of selflessness. It is not a sign of the absence of selflessness. It is the attachment to the expectation. This is how things should be. That's why the Ganga expects to go to the ocean, wants to go to the ocean, expects to go to the ocean, but if it does not go in one particular way, it finds another way. It is not attached to the way it goes to the ocean. It is to go to the ocean. It is ready to be flexible and find a way. If we had taken that particular definition of selflessness, say Prabhupada had taken that particular definition of selflessness means to expect nothing from Krishna, then Prabhupada could have said, maybe it is, my Guru Maharaj has said that if nobody comes to a program, preach to the walls. And maybe that is what Krishna wants me to do throughout my life. Why did Prabhupada go to the West? Now we say, no, Prabhupada went to the West because his spiritual master had told him to preach in the West. Okay, that is true. But then why did Prabhupada choose to go to America and not UK? His Guru Maharaj sent his disciples to UK. And Prabhupada had not been given a special instruction that you should go to USA. But Prabhupada saw that after the Second World War, the focus of the West had shifted from UK to America. So Prabhupada, he very humbly said that when devotees asked him, why did you go to America instead of UK? Prabhupada said, my godbrothers had gone there, they had failed. I thought if I'm going to fail, let me try somewhere else and fail. That was his sweet humility. But the point is, Prabhupada was, in one sense, there's always the individual intelligence to see where I am likely to be effective. So, 2 points in the answer of selflessness. Selflessness is not the absence of expectation, but the absence of attachment. The second is that just because there is no reciprocation in a particular way, does not mean we stop our service. Sometimes some devotees may preach throughout their life and they may never get any results. No any very spectacular results. But if they keep serving, then that is the selflessness of their devotion. But that they are getting enrichment. In Vrindavan, there are some temples where there are pujaris who've been serving from their childhood, day after day, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, they are dressing the deities. Nobody comes and appreciates how they are dressing, how they are serving. The temples may be small, nobody goes and shares those pictures on Facebook and social media. Nobody knows the service that they are doing. But they are doing it. So the reciprocation is internal. So the form of the reciprocation is up to Krishna. Does that answer your question? Okay. Last question, quickly. Yeah.
I had a quick question around, you said that Krishna speaks to us through the adversities in our lives. And just a few...
Okay, go ahead.
Just a few months ago, I was speaking to Damodar Prabhu from JB, and I asked him, bad things happen to us, and it seems a bit hard to, understand how Krishna can be kind, because in one sense, at least in the West it is like this, that if you have to communicate something to someone, and you communicate it clearly, but if you communicate in ways that are almost considered to be vindictive, then it's said that your communication is, toxic almost. So then he said that no, actually Krishna's got nothing to do with this world, it is your own Tatya Kampam, Susimiksha, and all that. So then how can we say that the things that happen to us that are bad are our own doing, and at the same time Krishna is speaking to us, but it's not very clear what he's trying to say. All you have is adversity, you don't have ego.
Do we have another class to talk about this? Okay, I'll try to answer shortly. But if it takes more than a few minutes, we'll talk personally afterwards. See, every event, especially a major event, if this is an event that happened, often it has many causes. It's not just one cause. So for example, if I feel cold right now I could be feeling cold because I'm not wearing any warm clothes. I could be feeling cold because I have fever. I could be feeling cold because maybe above here there's AC. I could be feeling cold because the climate of this place does not suit me. I could be feeling cold because there's climate change and the whole climate has become cold. So now every action, every event can have multiple causes. Or rather, it's not that every event has multiple causes. Every event can be caused to different degrees by different things. So now the intelligence is which causal level to focus on. Which causal level to focus on when. That, say, if somebody gets bad marks in an exam, thinks I am a loser. Now, could it be true? Well, it is also possible that maybe they just don't have the ability in that field, and if they continue to be in that field, they will be a loser. But they may not be a loser in some other field. See, one sign of lack of mental health or mental wellness is that smallest problems are escalated to biggest levels. It's like somebody does not respond to our phone call, and you say, you don't care for me, you don't respect me, you don't trust me, you don't value me. The other person might have been busy. So to address each issue at each level is important, at the right level is important. So in general, Krishna is the ultimate causal level. Hmm? Krishna is the cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna is not the cause of all effects. Krishna is the cause of all causes. The Vedanta Sutra gives the example that the rain is the cause of all vegetation on the earth. But the rain is not the cause of which vegetation grows where. Hmm? So the rain is the ultimate cause of all vegetation, not the immediate cause of all vegetation. Hmm? Like that, without Krishna, nothing would happen. So the specific problems that come in our life are a result of our some past karma. But the whole principle of karma would not exist without Krishna. Nothing would exist without Krishna. So it is not that we are suffering our karma and Krishna has nothing to do with it. I would not go so far as to say that. Hmm? That in general, the relationship with Krishna and suffering in this world, there are broadly 3 possibilities of the relationship. One is, Krishna, is he the cause of the suffering? Hmm? Is he the cure for the suffering? Is he the comfort amid the suffering? Hmm? So now, yes, it is true that he is not the cause of the suffering. Hmm? The suffering is caused by our own karma. But just because it is caused by our karma does not mean it has nothing to do with Krishna. Even karma works under Krishna. And even through what happens by our karma, Krishna can make his plan work through it. That is the resourcefulness of Krishna. That like an expert captain is there, and the captain is planning, this bowler will bowl at this time, this bowler will bowl at this time, this batsman will bat at that time. But if a bowler goes out of form, if a batsman goes out of form, then the expert captain can recalibrate. Okay, you bowl here, you bat over here. And they can deploy the resources. So the idea is that karma may work, but that does not mean Krishna is not working at all. Krishna is working through our karma to teach us some things. So that's why Krishna is not the cause of our suffering, but that does not mean Krishna is unconnected with our situation in the world. Krishna's plan is also working. Tasya anuvihito rajan. Bhishma tells Yudhishthir, Tasya anuvihito rajan. And Prabhupada translates that as, everything is within Krishna's plan. Which is very different from saying everything is Krishna's plan. It was not Krishna's plan that Duryodhan disrobed Draupadi. That was Duryodhan's misuse of free will. But even through Duryodhan's misuse of free will, Krishna executed his plan. So there are 3 broad factors in whatever happens in life. There is God's will, there is free will, and there is evil. So evil is the conditioning inside us. In our philosophy, there is no shaitan, that kind of being existing. But evil is the conditioning inside us, which sometimes overpowers some people. So that's the demoniac nature. So God's will is the ultimate cause. But there is free will and evil are also subordinate cause. Free will is the jiva, evil is the prakriti controlling and conditioning the jiva at times. So for us, Krishna is always there for us as the ultimate cure for our suffering, atyantika dukha nirvana. And Krishna is also there for us as the comfort amid our suffering. Dvandvat patrat amruta vivarshanad. And now what is the specific lesson that Krishna wants to give us through our suffering? I said that the lesson is, yesterday what I mentioned, what do I need to let go of or do I cling on to? The lesson is not necessarily, okay, this is specifically what you want to learn. Basically, ultimately Krishna is the supreme value. But while moving towards Krishna is what ultimately matters, what matters right now? What should I let go of? What should I hold on to? What can I hold on to? What should I hold on to? So that is the evolving lesson that we need to learn throughout our life. And in that way, we keep growing. So the lesson is not like one sentence lessons. It's more of a devotional dynamism. Okay. So let go of this answer now. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Yes, some comments, Prabhu?
I was going to invite Vijay Prabhu to actually conclude the session.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. These two sessions are very, very useful, very well connected, and you brought it down to earth and down to real life situations. And it's given us a fresh perspective on how to deal with things in life, especially as aspiring devotees, how to face the challenges. And the best part was you're teaching us how to become equipped to deal with the challenges rather than just be needy all the time and wanting to, looking for help all the time and not be able to use our abilities, whatever we have. And such great examples you gave, when there's one limitation, there's another facility Krishna has given. We can cry about spilt milk, but we can also make use of what milk we have, or maybe we have yogurt. So nice. This one, what you've spoken today, if we keep on meditating on that, so much to learn actually, very wonderful. And I'm very thankful to you for coming and giving us this very practical session and down to earth. And examples you gave were so real and so much we could relate to that, whether it's from the Mahabharata or from our current day-to-day life. I think that's very valuable. So look forward to more such sessions. Tomorrow morning we have the Chaitanya Charitamrita class in Shyam Kumar Prabhu's house. That's at 11 o'clock, isn't it? 11 a.m. So please come and hear Chaitanya Charitamrita. Those of you who have not read Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is a good opportunity to hear. And Sunday morning go to Bhagavatam class as well. So there's more to look forward to. And Prabhu, your association is very valuable. Thank you so much for all that you're doing for us. ISKCON Chaitanya Charan Prabhu ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. There was so much to grab on to, write down.